myself very quickly. I'm Jamal Wahi, solution consultant based in Dubai, covering Middle East and Africa. I'm your dedicated solution consultant. So when it comes to using the solutions, I'm the person to go. So what I want to do, since we have only 1 hour, but as I said, we'll have other opportunities to go through the platforms. Today, you need to consider this as really the a Web of Science Essentials session. So I do have some slides that I want to go through just to put things into context, and then I'll go through the platform to give an overview and a tour of the platform and how you can use it when you do research. Perhaps if some of you could mention a few things that you expect from this session or how you want to use the platform, maybe I can focus on that. Is there any particular challenge you want me to focus on?
Well, I think at this time we're open to getting the essentials rather than just assuming that, okay, well, some persons may have explored the platform, but if we get the essentials and then, of course, in the process of your presentation, if there are questions or things that are not clear, then we'll ask.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I'll make sure we have enough time for question and answers. Don't hesitate to interrupt me as I talk to clarify or to explain in more depth. So let me start by sharing my screen. I'll share this presentation with all of you anyway, and you'll get access to the recording as well, so you can share it internally. So let me go full mode, and I just need to swap. Yeah.
Hello.
All right. So what I want to focus on today is how you can use the Web of Science platform to streamline your research. So there are a few things that I want to mention before going into the platform with a live session or live training. So there are several challenges. So when you do research, and I'm sure those challenges are very familiar to anyone who does research. The first one is obviously lack of research time. Researchers are very busy doing so many things, not only research, which means reading, experimenting, collecting data, writing. They're also very busy doing many other things, right? Like editing, they might be busy teaching, and so on. Some professors might be supervising as well. So there is obviously a very limited amount of time to do research, and the goal, and that's what I want to do today, is to show you how Web of Science can help you to be more efficient. And if we speak about research discovery, is to be efficient to find the most or the most relevant literature, right? So you don't want to spend too much time trying to read hundreds, thousands of papers, because you know that you cannot read all of them. So the goal is really to be efficient when it comes to maximizing your research time. The second challenge is about reproducibility issues. So the thing here is we see big challenges in terms of you read a paper about a study, and then you're not able to reproduce it because data is not shared, the methods are not clear enough, or you don't have access to different methods or softwares. So this is also something that we can look at. And last challenge is related to an explosion of types of output. So when we talk about that, we mainly mean the following, which is not only articles and conference proceedings. There are lots of different other types of output, such as preprints, for example, or dissertations and thesis, as well as data sets and codes that are now available and that are linked. And of course, you need to make sure that all of this is easy to find within the platform. So when we have those challenges in mind, the Web of Science platforms makes it really easy for anyone doing research, researchers to find and interpret the information that they need to produce new research, right? So that's what we do as researchers. We conduct and we produce novel research of high quality. Um, so using the Web of Science platform, researchers, they can easily locate hard to find research materials such as datasets, conference proceedings, dissertations, preprints, content from regional and specialty journals. Um, as I mentioned, maximize the results of your limited research time and conduct more comprehensive literature reviews or systematic reviews, and then uncover the technical information that is that might not be available unless you read all the paper. So the way the platform is structured is the following. When you subscribe to the Web of Science is the name of the platform. Within the platform, you have access to several databases. Today, I will focus really on the core collection, which is the journals, conference proceedings, and books that are curated, selected by our editorial team. But for your information, based on your subscription, so you might not have access to all the databases, there are some other satellite databases related to specific type of content, such as dissertations and thesis, or preprints, or patents, or data, right? And then you have regional collections, such as the Arabic Citation Index, or the Chinese Science Citation Database, or the Korean one, right? And then you have specialty hosted collection and specialty collections, which are related to specific fields, such as Medline with the medical field, or InSpec for the engineering content. So a few statistics here that show you the really the coverage of content that you have access to through the platform. Again, you'll have access to this presentation with uh, um, you have access to this presentation where you'll have the details of the of each and every database, right? Um, let me go next. What I want to show, because I will focus on the core collection, right? I want to explain how we build the so-called index journal in the Web of Science core collection. Some researchers still refer to it as ISI journals, or journals with impact factor, right? What now with Clarivate, previously with Thomson Reuters, Thomson Scientific, all the way back to the 1950s. So the way if we focus on this database, we're talking about more than 21,000 journals. It's a citation index, so we link publications based on citations and references, depending on how you look at references. And it's a very powerful tool to track the development and evolution of ideas. So something that we do when we do research, you read papers, you do a literature review or systematic review, and you can see already how a specific idea has evolved over time, right? Um, something that that really characterized this database is that it's publisher neutral. Clarivate doesn't publish, as you know, journals. Clarivate is not a publisher, so we have in-house experts, independent experts. They're not affiliated to publishing houses. They're not doing research. They're not affiliated to any journals. They select the journals. So the publishers themselves, they send the journals to Clarivate for indexation. Our experts, they analyze, they select those journals based on very strict criteria. And so this is something that happens in-house. It is done with by our editors. Their day-to-day job is to do this every day, full time. And we also look at open access content, right? So since we're not a publisher, there is no issue at all. There is no commercial stakes in terms of publishing or not publishing in open access. You also have that information in the platform. If you look at this database itself, when it comes to selection criteria, which is publicly available. We use a single set of 28 criteria to evaluate journals. So they are divided into 24 quality criteria and 4 impact criteria. So we look at if the journal is published with a certain editorial rigor and best practices or publishing standards. And we also focus on those high quality journals, but also impactful journals, right? So why do we do this? One reason is to save you time, to focus on high quality content. But another important reason is that we ensure that you can rely on quality data to make different types of decision, right? So publishing decisions, if you're a researcher, or a librarian, if you want to focus on journals you subscribe to, or as a research manager, if you're interested in high quality research, then Web of Science collection is a good database to do that, right? If just a few elements to characterize again this database. So cited references go back to 1900. We index all author names and addresses. That's very important. All authors of all papers are captured, and their addresses as well, even if they have multiple addresses. We also started in 2008 capturing funding data based on funding acknowledgement, with lots of enrichment in the recent month, where you can have a better understanding of the funding landscape. And this is something we could do for Nigeria or for your own institution, and we can have a look at who is funding your research or who is funding the research of another institution, right? Something that we do, I can also show you that for your own institution, we standardize. So we unify author affiliations. So the addresses of the authors, we would unify them to make sure that we capture as much as we can all the different names that are used to as an address when it comes to your institution, but also many other institutions. And we've done this exercise for more than 17,000 addresses that we unified. Cover to cover indexing, meaning we index all the content from the front to the back cover of a journal, and we update Web of Science every day, right? Also, something that we look at in terms of content, if you look at emerging source citation index, there is a lot of regional content that might be very relevant. Index journals that are indexed in what we call emerging source citation index, right? And if we look at Africa, Nigeria, we have about 30 plus percent of content available in that database, right? So when we focus on the so-called global south, right, or emerging countries, here I show Africa, Asia, Latin America, Middle East. So we cover over 8,000 journals in this specific citation index. So this is when it comes to Web of Science core collection, right? So this is available within the platform. What I want to show you now, you'll get access to the presentation anyway. What I want to do is I want to jump into the platform, and I want to spend more time here, right? And by the way, I will also share this with you, where you will have access to our learning platform. There is a lot of materials available there. So you have resources within the product, right? Tips and guides. You can access them here directly from the help, right? Training, product updates, guided tours. You have self-guided learning, which are guided courses, live training. These are public webinars live. If you say, I'm interested in Web of Science, I want to know more about Web of Science, and I want sessions in English, right? You will see very specific sessions. I'm actually doing one next week, 29th of or 30th of January. and it's about the most impactful emerging specialty areas. And we use Web of Science quote collection to do this webinar, right? So it's going to be 1 hour on this specific topic. So these are free webinars. I'll share with you also a link to a newsletter where you get access to these different webinars and also advice when it comes to publishing. And then you have recorded trainings. So this is on demand. So this is within a specific date and time, right? And we repeat those sessions. But then you also have, let's say, I want to focus on Web of Science again, and I want English. You will see Web of Science essentials, research profiles, and journal selection process. What's new in Web of Science? So all of that are Web of Science recorded sessions. But on a specific topic, right? So this would be like 1 hour on how you manage your Web of Science profile, right? So I'll show you that today, but obviously it's going to be quite superficial. But you can always go back to this platform to have more content, and of course there are LibGuides, so very rich content, right? When it comes to using the platform, master journal list, if you want to find or you want to focus on journals that are indexed, journals that have impact factor, then you would have a look at that, and so on. So I'll just keep that window open and I will share that with you later on. So this is the landing page of the Web of Science. So this is what you will see when you log in, right? So let me show you. The link is webofscience.com, and that's the landing page. The access is given to your institution through your internet address or IP address, right? You will see something like this, and that means that you have access to the Web of Science. I recommend you create an account. It's a free account, and having an account here, like I do, will give you access to the Web of Science remotely from wherever you connect. You don't have to connect from your institution, right? And that gives you access for 6 months, but that 6 months is reset or rolling each time you reconnect again from your office. So that's the first thing to do. And when you have such account, that will be the same account you will use to manage your researcher profile, to connect to other products such as Insights. We have a session on 7th of February, if I'm not mistaken. That's the same account you will use to connect to another platform within the Web of Science universe. And also EndNote Online, which comes as a free tool when you have a profile in the Web of Science, as well as Master Journal List. Let me open it so I can show you later on. I'm using the same credentials, the same username and password. So if I log in here, it will tell me I'm using my university from Leiden University, my university email address to connect, and it's the same username and password. In the Web of Science, we're talking about research discovery in a sense that we are interested in discovering literature or to know more about scientific or a research landscape, and that includes researchers, institutions, funders, and so on, right? And that's where you start. You will see that here you have the capability of searching for documents, which means publications. We're talking about documents because you can have preprints or different type of output, as I mentioned earlier, or researchers, right? So I'll start with documents, and we have something that we launched recently, which is Smart Search Beta, where you can just enter topics, authors, institutions, and funders, and you let Web of Science do that, right? If I do, so I've seen that your institution, there is quite big output in terms of research related to corrosion, right? So that's one type of search, right? So I found corrosion, and then you'll get the different information or the information of the different publications. If you don't want to do that, you can do something more advanced if you want. right? Or you can put your name here as an author, or a colleague's name, or the name of your institution. So if I say Government University, right? Right, so I find almost 6,000 papers. I could analyze that. And that's how I found that your institution was quite active in corrosion, simply because I analyzed the output. Then there is compressing strength. So these are topics, right? So I'll come back to that in a moment. So this is what we call the smart search, but it's still in beta mode. And then you have something more advanced where you have field search, cited reference search, and structure search. So the field search is typically you want to search within specific fields. So think of it as you have access to the database, and we slice the publications where, like a big, huge Excel file where you have one column with the publication year, one column with the author name, one column with the topic, one column with the keywords, and so on, right? So all this information, we make it available here. And let's say now I'm focusing on corrosion, so the same topic, right? But then I want to be more specific, as say in the publication date, um, I want the past 5 years. And let's say in the address, I want someone from Nigeria, right? So you see, I'm building a more complex um, query, which is I want to find all papers related to corrosion. In the address, I want Nigeria to appear, right? So at least one researcher from Nigeria, and the paper needs to be published in the past 5 years, right? So that's what you would potentially do, just to review the recent literature. And I find 714 papers, something that I didn't mention, but if you read one paper per day, like proper literature, proper reading, you would need like 2 years to read everything, right? And obviously you don't have that time, although this research or this query is already quite advanced. And I could say I want to remove Nigeria. I want corrosion in the past 5 years, and obviously get much more, 76,000. That's massive. All the papers related to corrosion published in the past 5 years, they're more than 76,000. And then something that we released recently, it's the following, where we also suggest some topics, right? Some words. When it comes to corrosion, then you have corrosion resistance, corrosion behavior, inhibitor, and so on. So you can be more specific, right? So corrosion, but it should include corrosion resistance, and then it should also include anti-corrosion. And if I hit search, obviously, I will have um, less or less records. Um, if I go here, I would have other keywords that are suggested. So this is one way of doing it, of searching for papers. But then you could tell me, well, corrosion, there is, I know, 76,000. That's a lot of papers, and not everything is relevant. So we offer some very useful filters here to keep, the goal is to keep only what's relevant. So there are several ways to do that. So you might be interested in review articles. So you want to be quick in understanding a specific topic. One way of doing that is to read reviews done by other researchers. When you start about working on a topic, right? So you have researchers who went through the literature and they've done a review. So you could focus on those review articles, or the other way around, like you want to focus on conferences, right? Or you want to focus on articles like novel or original research. You're not interested in literature reviews, you're interested in articles. So it really depends on what you're interested in reading. Early access, that's a question that I often get. These are papers that have been accepted, right? But not assigned yet to a volume number or issue number. So that's what we call early access. You can access the paper online, but it's not published per se, in a sense that it has not been assigned to a volume number or issue number yet, right? Um, Another analysis, or something that I recommend when people speak about corrosion, they might study corrosion from different perspectives. And we have categories here that we call Web of Science categories, which relate to the category of the journals where the research is published. So when it comes to corrosion, no surprise, majority of papers are published in material science, metallurgy, but then you have other topics or other fields, sorry. So if someone comes to me and say, I work on corrosion, then my next question is, what's your field? Is it applied physics? Is it engineering civil? Because they use steel in building, houses, for example, and the corrosion is an issue. So that's obviously a different perspective, something more precise, right? So here, there is no bad answer. It's just what is your perspective when you study corrosion. So let's stick to materials for now and metallurgy, because that's what we're interested in, right? And you see from 76,000, I'm down to 36 because I'm more precise in the papers that I'm interested in. And I can go deeper in terms of topics. So you have the categorization of these papers based on the category of the journal, which is Web of Science categories. But then we have what we call citation topics, which is a classification of the paper itself. So for example, if you take this paper, right, durability of a new type of cement based and so on, it's published in Materials Express. Web of Science category would tell you that this journal is publishing research in material science and nanoscience and nanotechnology. But then if you go deeper, you have a classification of papers based on the topic, meaning what the paper is talking about, regardless of the classification of the journal. So we have three levels, micro, meso, and macro. Here we display two of them, micro and meso. And here you can be more specific. Let's say corrosion, when it comes to ceramics or concrete science, right? Or so this is the second higher level. But then you also have the classification of the paper and say, I'm talking about corrosion, but what I'm interested in, right? Well, I'm not an expert in corrosion, but let's pick something like, let's say I'm interested in corrosion itself, right? Just corrosion itself is a topic, all right? And you see from 76,000, I'm down to 5,000. And I'll show you how we get such data. If I open one paper here, right? So of course we index the title, list of all authors, the journal information. That's where you will see where the journal is indexed. It's indexed in science, in material science, and it has an impact factor of 2.3. We could have another session on journal citation reports, and we'll talk about that when we'll cover insights. But then you have more information. This journal is ranked 236 out of 344, and that makes it a Q3 journal, right? So that gives you an indication of the rank of this journal in this particular field. Regardless of the performance of the journal, we have some information about the paper itself, publication date, the abstract, the author keywords. It's highlighted in yellow because these are the keywords that I mentioned earlier in my query. You remember, I put corrosion, but then corrosion resistance and anti-corrosion. And then you have the address. And this is where you see that this paper is in a chemistry paper, corrosion and deposition chemistry, and it's a corrosion paper, right? Let me go back to my search results here. You could be also more specific. Let's say, and that's where you do an analysis of the output, right? That's what I call research landscaping, where you want to understand what's happening in your field. When it comes to corrosion, let me remove that. Let me remove this for now. When it comes to corrosion in these two fields, you have some very rich information, which is the following, where you see that Chinese are very active. when I say Chinese, researchers based in China, so this is the country of affiliation, then India, US, Russia, Saudi Arabia, and so on. That's where I could put a filter, very similar to what I was doing earlier. Let's see for Nigeria, right? So we have 95 papers from Nigeria with at least one researcher from Nigeria talking about this topic. Now you get more into the strategy of research, like more the, you know, if I was about to work on this topic, I would look at who's active on this topic, and maybe I could have a look at who's active from my country. So I would have a list of researchers here with the name, with the number of their names, sorry, and their profiles, but also the number of publications. And I could have some information about where they're affiliated. So we find 32 papers, very interesting, out of 95 papers from Nigeria related to corrosion. A third of them, right, 1 out of 3, are coming from your own institution. And then you say, yeah, how come I see Chinese Academy of Science, although I put a filter on Nigeria, simply because these are collaborations. So it means that researchers from Nigeria, they already collaborated with researchers from Chinese Academy of Science, and then and so on, right? I see there is a hand raised. Osinolu, don't hesitate to unmute yourself. You're muted if you want to interrupt and ask your question or.
Okay.
Yeah, go
Hello,
ahead.
Jamal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi.
Thank you for the presentation. It's been insightful so far. Okay, so I tried to log in, right? And at least I wanted to experience it a bit while you're on it. And I noticed, okay, I got a message that I already had an account, so I had to reset my password. But I got another prompt, and it says your roaming access to the Web of Science has expired. You are in a free session of the Web of Science, and the functionality may be limited. To gain full access to the Web of Science, you will need to renew your roaming access by signing into the Web of Science at your institution. And I know during while you were speaking, you mentioned the fact that the institution has IP access. So I'm just wondering, maybe you want to clarify what the roaming access has to do with the maybe the IP access. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Are you connected from home right now or from your institution?
From my institution, please.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
What and your previous roaming account was created at your current institution or a different institution?
This institution, Covenant University.
Yeah, that's strange. We would need to look into that.
Okay.
So yeah, might be a technical access issue, not correctly set up, or maybe an IP address that we haven't captured.
Okay.
So we would need to look into this. Yeah, Sylvia is in the session, so we'll make sure that we capture all the IP addresses. But in short, the way it works is the following: if you open webofscience.com from your university, it should work, right?
Okay.
Regardless of having an account or not an account, or not having an account. Creating an account gives you the ability of using Web of Science from everywhere. Right now, I'm working from home, right? I'm not from the Clarivate office. But what I've done, I created my account the first time when I was connected from the Clarivate office. And then I have it for a good 6 months. And this 6 months is reset every time I reconnect again from the office, right?
Okay.
But perhaps, yeah, maybe your IP address that you're using currently in your institution is not something that we captured, but we'll need to look into this.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, so what I was looking at is the following, and my advice is when you do a search, try to be as specific as possible. Yeah, there's another hand raised. Yeah, okay, no. Now the hand is lowered. Okay. My advice is, it's, well, the fact is you cannot read everything, but my point here is that there is a lot of noise. Not everything that you see here is relevant. Not everything. So you want to keep an eye only on what's relevant, and there are several ways to do that. Document type, the category of the paper. Perhaps if you were strategic and you say, I want to collaborate with some researchers from around the world, I want to know where they're based, right? So their affiliations, their department, their names, right? So this is one way of doing it. You might be interested in funding. Who's funding research when it comes to corrosion? So then you'll have the main funders here, right? So you start from the publications that give credit to the funders, and you say, I want to raise money. And maybe there is a funding program from a specific funder, right? And maybe I have a chance to get some money from there. So it's not only to read papers, it's also to understand what's happening in your field. Something very useful as well is conferences. If some of you are interested in traveling and presenting your own work, well, the question is, which conferences are presenting or interested in your work? And here you have series of conferences, right? So for example, this one, um, it's about bridges maintenance. This one is about material processing. So it looks like it's a series, right? Series of conferences. So obviously you want to look at when the next one is happening and so on. And something that I wanted to leave to now is the following. You will see, because you subscribe to Web of Science and Insights, you will see this very rich information. So when I did mention earlier that we have the citation index, right? When we talk about citation index, we capture citations, right? And when we capture citations, for example, something that you could do here would be the following. I want to sort publications by citations, right? So here I want to see the papers that received the higher or the highest number of citations. And for example, this one, well, this is related to COVID-19. Let's be more specific. If I just pick, I select corrosion again. So I'm down to 10,000 papers related to corrosion. So this is a review, all right? So, and we know reviews are usually highly cited or more cited than articles. But if I just pick articles, I want to find the articles related to my topic that have been heavily cited. So for example, this one is a paper that is now almost 3 years old, and it was cited already 255 times. That's massive. That's a huge amount of citations. And you see that this paper received this distinction. It has this trophy, which tells you that this paper received enough citations to be in the top 1% in engineering. And that's another filter information that you can make use of. So I'm not asking you to cite again those papers. They are already heavily cited, but you need to know more about them. Those papers, they deserve some attention, because in this particular field, corrosion, but that works across all topics, those papers are really very influential in a sense that they represent what we call nodes in science, right? So they represent like new developments or new cutting edge research or new frontiers in the field. Here is very easy. If you just read the title abstract, within a few seconds, right, maybe 1 or 2 minutes, you would realize if it's relevant or not. If it's relevant, then you keep it. There are many ways to do that. You can export it, or you can send it to your EndNote online, right? So now I have my account, I can save it, and then I can cite it later on in my manuscript, or I can just ignore it, right? And that's quite a quite powerful thing to look at. Have a look at those papers that are considered as top 1% in the field. So these are papers that receive enough citations to be in the top 1%. And then you see there is a distinction between a highly cited paper, which is top 1%, and then you have hot papers. A hot paper is like hot news, and a paper can be a hot paper and highly cited in a sense that this one is less than 1 year old, March 2023, but it received 84 citations already in less than a year. And that's enough to be in the top, not 1%, but top 0.1%. So it's really the more impactful papers of the impactful papers, right? So that's what we mean by hot papers. It's in the top 0.1% of the papers in the field when compared with the same document type in the same field and the same year, right? So I repeat, this is a paper that is classified in the material sciences. It is an article because that's the filter that I put earlier, right? If I compare all the articles published in 2023 in material sciences and I sort them and I compare the citations. So if I take the citations and I sort the publications by descending order, so number one would be the paper with the highest number of citations and so on, going all the way down. And if I draw a line, if I just take the top 0.1%, these are my hot papers, right? And hot papers, we look at 2 years of data, so 2023, 2022. For highly cited papers, we look at 10 years of data. So this is something that I recommend you have a look at when you do a search on a topic. Have a look at highly cited paper and hot papers. And just read the title and abstract and you say, okay, that's relevant. That's really interesting. And that gives you an idea of where, this is like cutting edge technologies or cutting edge findings. Something that I want to show you, which is the following. Very recent, which is related to the publishing part of our activities as researchers. If I read this paper, right, we have what we call view open peer review. So this paper is published. It's published in Canadian Journal of Chemical Engineering, published in June 2022. But you see, it was as early access for about a year. So it was available online in May 2021, and it was officially published in this volume number, issue number, and with the page numbers in June 2022. So 1 year later. But here is what I want to show you, the open peer review. Let's imagine that corrosion is your topic and Canadian Journal of Chemical Engineering is your target journal. Well, and you want to know more about how peer review works for this particular journal. You have some indication and you have the history of this paper, and it went through 2 rounds. So it was submitted. 4 reviewers, they gave their comment, right? Okay. And you have some suggestions. So 4 reviewers giving their comments, and then it came back. It went through a different round, right? They revised the manuscript, and then you have the decision letter, 27th of April 2021, right? Until all formatting. So they accept until all formatting requirements have been met and so on, right? So that's also available here as a filter to give you an idea of maybe what you can expect in terms of peer review when it comes to a specific journal. So this is based on journals that partner with us and use our solutions to share the peer review report when the peer reviewers and the authors agree to do so, right? Of course, you see out of 10,000, almost 4,000 papers, about 40% of papers are in open access. So you don't have to pay to read them, right? If the paper is in open access, you'll have access to it, right? So if I just take the DOI and I read it, or I simply click on view free full text from publisher. It opens the article, and I should be able to read. You see, view PDF, and I can download and read the full text, right? So that's one way of doing it. So here the PDF is coming, still loading, right? Here is the full text. Let me also show you something else that I wanted to mention, which is the following. Yeah, so you have free full text from publisher, or you have full text links from repository. This is also something we can work on with your library. If your library is subscribed to some journals, we can activate the links here directly in the Web of Science, right? So you see what I've done so far is captured here. So if I go back, advanced search, if I hit search, right, I have my search results. I can put my filter. If I open a record, I see the different records. Some of them have an ORCID, some of them have a researcher ID, some of them have both. That's what I mentioned in my introduction earlier. Web of Science helps you to create and manage your profile as well. Let's have a look at this particular researcher. Or actually, let's have a look at someone from your own institution. So now I'll do a search of researchers that have a profile in the Web of Science. So meaning they went into the Web of Science and they claimed their profile. So we have almost 2,500 profiles. Some of them have claimed the profile, 423, right? So for example, let's take this one, but he was affiliated, someone now is in Germany, but let's take Isaac Fayome here. I know it's claimed profile because it has a green check, right? So this person went into the Web of Science actually in 2023 and has claimed the profile. And very interestingly, you see the different names under which this researcher has published. So it went into the profile, gathered the publications and say, so let me show you the way it works. Very, very easy to do. So if I do a search on researcher, let's say my name, for example, that's me. And if I say myself, so you just do a search on, I already claimed the profile, but if I were to find a publication, let's say I found my paper, right? So this is my paper. I simply have to say export and say add to my researcher profile. Well, it's already in my profile, so I'm not doing it again, but that's how you would do it. Search for your papers, find them, and add them to your profile, right? When you have a profile, you have access to it here, my profile, or you can also manage it here. Profiles, my researcher profile, you can edit it. Of course, this is me who put my picture here. I put my affiliations, my university, but also Clarivate, my field. And something that you might have already is that you might have an ORCID already. If you have an ORCID, if you already have an ORCID, that's fantastic because you already have done big chunk of the job. And the only thing you would have to do is the following. If I go to publications, right, I can add publications to my profile. And there, Web of Science is trying to suggest papers based on what it finds in different places, like preprint server, publications indexing or published in index journals and so on, based on my email address as well. If you have the DOI, you can also search for the DOI. But my preferred way is the following. Every paper that I submit to a journal, I put my ORCID and I synchronize with the ORCID so that I manage only the ORCID. And now my Web of Science profile is synchronized with the ORCID. When I update Web of Science, it updates the ORCID. When I update Web of ORCID, it updates the Web of Science, and I can push manually publications and peer review activity, right? So this is also something that you can showcase in the Web of Science. For example, you have papers, publications, but you also have peer review, right? So I've done some peer review for some journals. If you want to showcase that, that's also possible in the Web of Science. But what's interesting when you have a claim profile is that you have the statistics, then the number of papers, and then you have what we call a beam plot. For example, here that tells me that my publications are more influential than 73% of papers of the same type in the same field, right? Compared with papers of the same type in the same field published in the same year. Some statistics in terms of authorship. 100% of my papers, I'm the first author, but also the corresponding author. And it suggests some researchers who are also active, right? Based on my activity. So Web of Science tells me, well, those people, they are researchers active in a similar field, right? So that makes sense. Scientometrics, right? Intelligent systems, scientometrics. That's definitely my field. And then it gives you some indication about co-authors, like people that have collaborated with. So something you could do here, if you go researchers, if I go again search by institution, and I want to search here, something that I recommend you do, for example, Solomon here, or let's take someone else. Let's say, right. So for example, I guess this person might be the same, right? So if I say I want to see these two, right? I see these two profile. No, it's not the same. This one and this one, I think, look the same. Perhaps I'm not sure. But you will need to find your profile and say, looks like this one and this one are the same. You could say, I want to view them as combined records, right? And I can submit a correction. If I see a profile, like for yeah, somehow I've been muted. Yeah, here it will tell you if this is you, then you can say, I want to claim my record. Are you this author? And I would say, yes, that's me, right? So I would clean the record, and that will generate a profile, and this would become a permanent ID, right? As of now, because it's not a claim profile, I can still see some data here, right? I can view the beam plot, right? So for example, this particular researcher, 2009, 39 citations. This paper is very influential. It's in the 93rd percentile, meaning this particular researcher in 2019, this paper received 99 citation, right? And that places this paper as in the 93rd percentile, meaning this paper is more influential than 93% of papers of the same type published in the same year in the same field. And then she had another paper in 2020, which is in 39 percentile. Then two papers in 2021, lower impact, so 0 citation and 1 citation, and so on. So, and that gives you an average. So you have the green circle per year. So this paper, so it's only one paper, but then you have the average for the whole period. So this researcher, on average, when we look at the publication of 2019, 2021, 2022, this author is more influential than 14%, 14% of the world researchers active in the same field. I'm trying to cover as much as I can because this is the essential, which is how to search for papers, how to analyze them, filter them, right? And how to find researchers. Something that I wanted to mention as well is that you can analyze them from here. Let's take something smaller. Let's say the alloys, magnesium alloys here. I can analyze them by field. That gives me this chart. I can see per year. So this is something you can have a look at in terms of trend. So let's say by date, right? And I want, let's say 25. So I've put 5 years. I will need to go back. I have only the 5 years. Sorry, if I do this, let me go back to corrosion and let me remove my filters of well, let's keep it this way. Yeah, so here, let me go back to the search. Right, so let me remove this. I want the full history, right? Corrosion, search, let me do that quickly. And then I was interested in the alloys, and I want, or actually let me pick something else. Yeah, well, let's do an analysis on that. So here on the publication, so just in terms of trends, right? Dates in the past 25 years, we see more and more research being done when it comes to corrosion on magnesium alloys. 2023 is down because for us, 2023 is not complete. We still receive papers from 2023. Something that you could also have a look at is the following. If I say, for example, small topic, let's say, for example, this one, if you have less than 10,000 papers, you can generate what we call a citation report, where it gives you an idea of, all right, when you work on this topic, the average number of citation is 16 for the whole period of time, right? So that gives you some analysis you can play with. As I mentioned, you can export. You can export to EndNote. You can export to a text file, to Excel, if you want to save the metadata for your own records. In 2-3 weeks time, 2 weeks time, we'll see when you can export to Insights, right? You can export to RefWorks, EndNote, as I mentioned, right? So that's typically it. Is there any question or comment? I know I went a bit fast and there's a lot of information. You'll have access to the recording. You'll get my contact details, where I will also share like a newsletter when you can subscribe and get the alerts of the trainings that we conduct and different tips and advice that I share. And yeah, that's what I wanted to showcase here. Yeah, I see there was a hand raised. Yeah, there were. Yeah, just go ahead. You're on mute.
Okay,
Yeah.
good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Jamal. Thank you for this teaching session. So quickly, I have three questions. One is when you were showing us how to search, you only used maybe one word. So my question is, can we use multiple words? And to get the best results, should we use conjunctions or quotations? So for example,
Yeah.
maybe corrosion and I don't I'm in
Yeah.
tax, I'm in business. So let me say maybe agile manufacturing and sustainable competitiveness, or is it better to do agile manufacturing quotation and then sustainable competitiveness in quotation? So
Yeah.
should I take
Yeah.
all my questions or you take them one?
Yeah, very good question. Yeah, I should have mentioned this. So you have a search help here that tells you a lot of information about what you can use, but that's a very good point here. For example, if I do this, right? So by default, the operator is and. So Web of Science will try to find papers that mention those keywords, but I could also do this, which would be the exact sentence, right? Corrosion protection in desalination plant, or I could say corrosion protection and desalination, right? So these three search queries are totally different. Now that's very precise. I'm looking at corrosion protection, but I also want the paper to mention desalination plant. You see, in the abstract or title or keywords, it's mentioning both of them, at least either in the title or abstract or keywords. If I do this, maybe I won't find anything. I don't know. Let's do that. So I tried to find this exact sentence, nothing is found, right? If I do corrosion protection and desalination and plant, right, and protection, right? We had 4, now we have 10 times more. Why? Because we have papers that mention protection, desalination, and so on. But then I can be more specific, let's say something like this, and then that becomes quite complex. So for example, you say corrosion and protection and desalination, right? Or plant, for example. Well, you can play with all these different, and now we have like 10 million. So of course, you can play with those different operators. Let me show you, we have it here. For example, you see you can, so you'd have search. So if I say and operator, we have we have operators like and, nor, or like search operators. So I can put that in the chat if you want. It's available in the help, right? So you can use and, of course, right? So for example, beverage and bottle and beer, or beverage or bottle, beverage not bottle. So you can exclude, but the implicit operator is and, right? But by default, Web of Science use an implicit and operator. So if you just put 2 keywords, Web of Science understand that as those 2 keywords together, and, right? So that's the implicit. To answer the second part of your question, yeah. So it really depends what you're interested in. So for example, I might have something. You see here, I've done a search that is quite advanced, which is I was interested in science and funding or funder in specific countries, right? But at least one of these countries. So it distributes those keywords. And then you could say something like this if you want, let's say fund, right? But I was funding, so this would find all the keywords that start with fund, right? Was there another question? Someone else has a hand raised. Jolayemi?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm not done. I said I had 3 questions.
Yeah, tell me. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I'll just ask the other 2 together. Next one is when we're talking about moving profiles. What if maybe a namesake mistakenly claims someone else's profile, or I mistakenly claim someone else's profile? How can that be rectified? And then this other question is the place where it talked about analyzing results and said we could export the analysis. How do we cite Web of Science if we maybe use the graph or something like
Yeah,
that?
yeah. That's a good point. If you do, I've seen that in many publications. You do a search, and well, the way you would mention this would be, for example, in your methods and data, you would explain that I've done this search. It was a topic search. I found 41 papers as of today, January 2024, and I conducted the analysis. And then the way you cite a platform is basically the URL, right? So you need to create a reference and you say this is Web of Science, 2024, and that's extracted from the platform. If you create a citation this way, or you just put maybe like even a footnote which says data is retrieved from webofscience.com. It really depends on the journal requirements, but that's typically how I do it when I use a platform and you want to mention the platform that you mention. Either you create a citation, but that's not really a citation, is more like a tool that you have used. And in this case, you could just explain that in your methods and data section and mention this as like a footnote. If you want to share that, that's also possible. If you want to share your full analysis, you can use something like Zenodo. Maybe you've seen that, or Figshare. Let me show you. I've used that. I've used that in a few studies where you can put your data there, like your own analysis, the Excel file that you created, because when you do this, analyze results, you can export this, right? You can download it and you can export this in a text file or an Excel file. But then you can go into Zenodo, for example, if you go into my uploads. So you'll see these are like simple Excel files, right? So research funding in the Middle East and North Africa, or analyzing scientific mobility, and I put the authors, right? And what I would do here is just creating a citation, and you can either share it, right? Or I think there might be a way to have it as a citation. I've done that before, which is this one. You see, it creates the citation for you, right? So you have APA style, Harvard, MLA, Vancouver, Chicago. So your data set, you give it a title in Zenodo, for example, or Figshare. There are lots of platforms that help you to do that. And you put your analysis, the data in an Excel file, you create your chart there, you give it a title, and you cite this. That's one way of doing it. You create the style that you want here, right? So Zenodo is something that you can also use. Just put it in the chat.
Right.
All right.
Right. Thank you, Jamal.
Yeah, I'll take these. There was another hand raised. If we have enough time.
Yeah, perhaps another 5 minutes so that we can get back to other activities. But I believe we're having another training 7th of February, and that's
Correct.
on Insight. Exactly. We'll also circulate that information to everyone. But it's okay if you take another 10 minutes.
Yeah, but by the way, I'm not sure if you request certificate of participation, certificates of attendance. I'm happy to share the recording with you and you distribute it. I'm not sure I have access to, maybe I have a report of attendance. So I will share those different links that I share with all of you, as well as the recording, making sure that everyone has access to it. But yeah, let me take one last question and then we can wrap up.
Excellent.
Okay, Jamal, good afternoon. Yes.
Hi.
So I just have an observation. I notice I can't search for documents using the document tab. I can only go through the researcher tab. Yeah, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
Then the second
so
question, okay, go ahead,
go ahead.
please.
Go ahead. Well, just to answer,
so
it's related to the same issues as earlier. When when your access is not activated, because you will have a free version of Web of Science where you can search for researchers, but the one that you subscribe to, you have access to, or you should have access to, enables you to search or allows you to search for publications. So we need to fix that access. We need to do some tests maybe and see if we capture all the IP addresses.
Yeah, I already sent a message to Sylvia, and I hope we'll get that resolved. Yes.
Excellent. Yeah, the second question, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, so if I want to export, let's say the method used in a particular area of research in the form of a table, can I actually do that?
You mean exporting methods?
Yes, for comparison or also for review.
Yeah, no, you won't be able to do that unless you go into the full text. You won't be able to export from Web of Science. I understand what you're trying to do. That's actually an excellent idea to compare methods. But to do that, you would need to do an initial search on papers, let's say corrosion. Let me do that very quickly, and methods, right? So I want to find all papers that talk about corrosion and method. And well, that's obviously a lot, but not all papers mention the methods in title and abstract. So you need to collect that. Let's say if you focus on these 17,000 papers, and then you have some techniques, collect those PDFs, put them in the database, try to export to read the PDFs, export the method section from the PDFs, but that's a massive amount. We don't offer that possibility directly from the web hosting. You would need to do that not manually. You do have some methods to export text or content to read PDFs, but yeah, that's how I would do it. To find different methods, or I mean, yeah, from the platform itself, you can't do that. I'm just trying to see if there is a way, but that's how I would do it. I would search the papers that mention my topic of interest and the method keywords, right? And then find the relevant papers, export them. Because when you read the paper, unless you read the paper, you wouldn't know about the method that has been used. You need to read the full text, right? That's not explained. That's not always explained in the abstract. So for example, this one, they use a calculated phase diagram CalFAD method, right? So you could focus on this. Here they explain that they've done some comparison. You can use some what we call NLP, natural language processing methods, trying to group papers based on methods. That's possible. I know some people who've done that, but not from the platform. That won't be possible from the platform. So here you see they use a combination of methods, but we don't know which ones. So yeah, that's how I would do it.
Thank you.
Yeah, most welcome. Yeah, thank you all for your participation, interaction, very, very rich discussion. I love such sessions, and sorry for going beyond time. As I mentioned, I'll make sure that I share the recording, the presentation. You can share it internally as well. You'll get my contact details if there's any specific question. Please consider this session as an Web of Science essential. There is a lot of online material available that I'll share with you. And we'll have another session early February. And happy to repeat that later on during the year. We'll make sure that we fix the access so that everyone can use the platform. And I'm sure as you use the platform, there will be more questions coming in. But for now, yeah, thank you very much, everyone. And I hope you have a good week, a good day.
All right. Thank you, Jamal. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks to everyone that made out time to join. We look forward to subsequent trainings. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.